Hello again. This is Tomás O'Leary here with two Irish guys discussing software. I'm here. Hang on a second here. I'm here not with another Irish guy. I'm here with Harry Candadai again, our very own SVP of Global Marketing and Thought Leadership. Harry, this is terrible. I keep bringing India, Ireland in, and it should be India. What we got to change this. Two I guys or something.
Two I guys, or an Irish and an Indian guy. I bet Brendan is feeling a little left out. Let's bring him in next time for the holiday podcast, Tomás. So Brendan, we'll bring you in. Don't worry, I'm not taking this over. Yeah.
We'd love that. I think we definitely need to do that for sure. Yeah, no, but it's listen, we need representation from everywhere, don't we?
Absolutely, we do. And speaking of representation and speaking of India here and an Indian guy, let me start off with some positive news that I see. IBM plans to train, Tomás, 500,000 Indians in cybersecurity over the next 5 years. That's a number that's even big for India, 500,000 Indians. And the good news I see there is the focus on security, right? I think Asia is now one of the most targeted regions for cyber attacks. I believe the last, the Threat Intelligence Index for 2022 says that 26% of attacks back in 2021 were all in Asia. So that's good news. India ranks second, by the way, after Japan and Australia on the most attacked countries in the Asian region. So from that perspective, I think that's great that IBM is going there, making some serious investments. Cybersecurity, by the way, huge major investment focus, huge growth vertical for IBM in India and the rest of Asia Pacific. So just thought we'll share that news about how IBM is turning on the security investment in India, and 500,000 Indians. That's a number even big for Indian size.
Wow, that is incredible. Well, listen, we don't want people to be just presenting bad news about IBM. That's a good news story, absolutely, which is great. So normally, it's good to have you, Harry. You can find some good stories about what's happening with an IBM. Actually, I don't know whether you heard, they actually also in court. This time they're actually not being sued, unlike some of the other stories. Mm-hmm. They are actually doing the suing. Yep. Yeah, they are taking on Micro Focus, who are in the process of being bought by OpenText, but they're taking a case against Micro Focus. Claiming that Micro Focus, or alleging that Micro Focus copied and reverse engineered the KIX mainframe service. Right. I don't know whether you know as much about KIX and what it even stands for. It's Customer Information Control System. All my mainframe friends will be delighted to hear that. Obviously, we have a mainframe service now to learn all of this stuff. But honestly, they're quite bizarre what they've actually been trying to do in there. The complaint actually says, and I read the thing, paragraph 40 of the complaint says that IBM believe that Micro Focus's copy of the KIX TSWS bin software was so much a copy that it included some of the same defects and, believe it or not, Harry, the missing features. So things that were missing in the IBM program utility are actually not in the Micro Focus, so is the claim. So we'll wait and see what happens there.
That's an interesting one. And I did come across that. I didn't look too much into the detail, but sounds like a pretty strong case that they're going after. And I was actually looking at some of the wording there, and IBM is serious about this.
Oh, no, totally. There's a big case now. So, I mean, listen, if you're going to copy someone's software, I mean, what does the US Copyright Act say? You cannot copy software, so let's be straight about it, Yeah. You have some news about somebody else who likes to report, don't you?
Speaking of people suing other people and companies suing other companies, let's talk about Larry Ellison. I saw this very interesting article, Tomás. Forbes put out their annual billionaires list. Larry drops 2 places to be in now as number 7, and guess who is ahead of him? And I'm sure he's not happy at all. And that is Bill Gates on number 5. But here's the bigger thing. I always wondered, how many billionaires are there in this world? 2,668 billionaires in 2022. So there's a trivia, 2,668. And the article goes on to say, it's amazing, right? That kind of wealth. Can you imagine the role that these billionaires can play and are playing in shaping global economy, politics, philanthropy, and some of them are doing a great job. And another interesting point, because most of their wealth so much of their wealth is in these publicly traded stocks. The net worth of the richest, they can just fluctuate with market valuations. And give you an example, right? Elon Musk in 2021, just because the share price of Tesla rose nearly 50% and he owning 16% of the company, his net worth, boom, surged. As of September 2022, worth $241 billion. That's the GDP of many countries put together, the smaller ones at least. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Well, and I wonder what will happen if he took a measurement in early January after what he's doing with Twitter. Let's see how much actually
there's that.
I believe he's in first place, but Larry Ellison in 7th place. Oh, he's very competitive. And I'd say he won't be very happy to have Bill Gates ahead of him. Speaking of Bill Gates and Bill Gates' alma mater, Microsoft, did you see that they are trying to do kind of deals and offer concessions to regulators? It's kind of a very unusual bit of activity. They're trying to buy the gaming provider Activision Blizzard. So they're trying to buy those guys, and as part of that, they are obviously PlayStation have an issue, as many of the other gaming manufacturers, because they want to actually keep the games from.
Did I read that right, Tomás? Is it really a $69 billion acquisition? Is it really?
Yeah. Have you ever played Call of Duty?
Yeah.
Have you ever played it?
I haven't. I haven't.
I was just checking. Have you played Call of Duty? Well, if you have played Call of Duty, you will say that's a 69 billion. That's not a lot of money at all for a game that good.
No, that's an eye-popping amount, but I'm sure there's a reason for that. And as you said, it's probably going to help them.
Yeah, well, they're actually trying to do a deal where they're trying to say they're telling the regulators in the European Union that they're actually going to allow Call of Duty and all the other games from Activision Blizzard on PlayStation for another 10 years. So they're trying to do a deal, which is, to be fair, I think they're playing the game, which is what they should do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of the big names here, I just came across this one, thought was interesting. South Africa Special Investigating Unit, SIU. They've ordered SAP. This time it's SAP to pay back 55 million euros, Tomás. And they claim these were the money that they got when the company, for the deals that they made, helping the countries, South Africa's ailing power utility company, Eskom, when the former president, Zuma, was still in power. So a lot of action globally on these big names, 55 million euros to be paid back by SAP. So let's see what SAP's next course of action will be, right? Are they going to respond to this? Are they going to just pay it? But I thought, wow, globally, so many things happening with all these big names and money, deals being cut and money being exchanged. And these are new, some new stories out there.
Yeah, listen, it's crazy. You were talking about the billionaires earlier on, and there's been a lot of news about that with the Gupta family in South Africa, who are one of the wealthiest families in South Africa. That whole regime, really, there's an awful whiff off the whole thing, and
absolutely,
it was. I mean, to be fair, in South Africa, they got some whistleblowers to help out with that. So. Listen, we'll move off the gossip for now. Although it's good fun to do a bit of gossip with you. We normally myself and Brendan do it, but it's great to do a bit of gossip with you. It was a great episode last time with Vinny Mercandonai. I think we did a great job with a great conversation, and I thought we might just recant a couple of quick things that we talked about there. I mean, I thought for me, I got some good takeaways. I loved his conversation about the observation, what had happened during COVID, particularly around speed and innovation. And he threw out some really, they're such simple examples, but and we all know them. But many of them they weren't there before, like the speed at which they threw out telemedicine, the speed at which go the electric charging devices and the whole technology around that, and that whole last mile of delivery and curbside pickup. These things really pre-COVID, it just didn't exist. Not even within 2 years later, but this stuff was within months. Sometimes they were in weeks. They were putting this on the table. So I thought that was really, really interesting, massively interesting. I don't know if you saw stuff.
Yeah, I did too. Speed, and thank you for the recap there. The speed, what I walked away, the expectation about not only speed, Tomás, but it's getting value right away from the investment, immediate value, almost immediate value. And I think the COVID situation, of course, forced everybody to move at a pace much faster. As one CIO told me, what they couldn't get done in about 3 years, he was able to get it done in 3 months, right? So it really pushed the envelope when it comes to innovation. The other thing I liked about Vinny's point was this taking control, which you alluded to. Whose roadmap is it, I think, was the gist of the whole conversation, right? Whose roadmap are you driving? Is it a vendor-dictated roadmap, or is it a business-driven roadmap? Because the smart companies, the smart CIOs are driving their own business-driven roadmap, because guess what? The pressure is on. The focus on digital, I think, is going to be huge. I just came across this study yesterday. Tomás thought I'll bring it up here. 81%, according to this recent Gartner report, 81% of CEOs say that they are going to increase, not decrease, increase their investments in digital. 69% of CFOs say that they're going to increase their investments in digital. So despite all the talk about the economic headwinds and, a looming recession and all of that, technology is not the area they're going to cut. And Vinny's point about, if you're driving a vendor dictator roadmap, you're not going to focus on moving that innovation needle, giving immediate value to the companies.
Yeah. And you wonder what's creating this kind of need for the vendors to just be like predatory. We like a lot of the kind of bad news stories you talked about. We've touched on some good ones earlier, but the bad news stories, they really are driven by just almost desperation. I mean, and I think one of the things that Vinny was talking about is it's obvious when you look at it, but you sometimes forget, like the traditional spending patterns by customers. So the customers were traditionally, so the way these spending patterns happened for years was either one of two, what he talked about was these lumpy spending patterns, or indeed actually the very large spending outsourcing patterns that you had over maybe 8, 9, 10 years. That's all changed. It's a completely different model. Its transaction values are smaller. There's more. It's almost like a consumable, smaller kind of modular level. That's creating huge challenges for these big organizations. They're unable to adjust. And one of the things, actually, I don't know whether you heard this, what we're hearing back from our own sales reps in the field, when we specifically look at obviously IBM being the company that we compete with, but it's not unique to them. But what we've heard in the field that it seems the software audits, which is obviously one for compliance, clearly is important, but it really seems more and more that it's a shakedown, it's a revenue generator, and they're moving from, on average, they were typically going back to companies every 3 years. They're now going back every 2. So every 2 years, a company can expect an audit. I mean, if you took a typical organization and said, how could they deal with this? I mean, how many software vendors, if every software vendor came to them to do an audit every 2 years? I mean, some companies have hundreds, if not thousands, of software vendors. Yep. How could you'd basically employ teams?
That's right.
Entire buildings of people just to protect yourself from these audits. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous, And
that's just one example, right? Tomás, one example of what a vendor-driven roadmap looks like, or vendor-dictated in this case. They call the shots, and that's what's happening. I think, unfortunately, that's putting so much pressure. It's not just the financial pressure, but can you imagine when you get ready for an audit, the people, the time, the money that's consumed by companies just in preparation for it, or the ability to work on the initiatives that really matter, all the digital stuff. It's not going to happen because you have your best, your brightest people, your resources all tied up just managing to this vendor dictated roadmap. Audit's a great example. Forced upgrades or end of support when you have a perfectly fine running system. Anyway, I see what you're saying. It was a good conversation. It was great to have Vinny validate some of those from his viewpoint, but his point about smart CIOs taking control and innovating, and those are the ones that are driving the business forward, right? They take control of the roadmap.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I think when you think about some of the things we're talking about here, and some of the survey figures you threw out there a moment ago about investment in digital, when you've got the backdrop of these attacks how is it that organizations are able to do that? And I have to put a little kind of shout out to our own organization. You probably know, Harry, you know well.
Yep.
We recently, in the last couple of months, won an outstanding award from one of the largest retailers in Europe, one of the largest in the UK, Sainsbury's. They gave us one of their top awards for called the Save to Invest program, which was one of their 3 strategic imperatives. We were the winners of that. But that's what they have to do. They have to, and the smart companies are doing that. They are looking at their environment. They're identifying areas where they can actually make significant savings without degrading service, with in fact improving service, as we would like to point out to our customers, and our customers testify to this. Being able to go back and say, okay, how can I remove unnecessary cost so that I can make investments in those critical areas, in those digital areas? Because that's what your survey is telling you, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you think about Sainsbury's, right, second largest retailer, how can you manage 1,400 stores and compete with other retailers if you don't invest in digital? And Sainsbury's is one of those great examples where they figured out a way, and in part, of course, using third-party software maintenance as I call it, yet another arrow in their quiver, right, to free up the people, the time, the money to invest in those digital initiatives that's continuing to propel them forward. So very proud, Tomás, of our team there, and big thank you to the Sainsbury's team as well, because this is testimony to a long-standing 5 years and counting customer relationship, and how they have chosen Origina to be a strategic partner in that category. Very important category, save to invest. You save in one area. It's not, by the way, I had a very interesting conversation with one of the leading Gartner analysts yesterday, who said it's not just cost cutting, it's cost optimization. You just don't cut. While we'd help do that, but it's helping companies like Sainsbury's, helping companies like Liberty Mutual, helping companies like TIA invest that money in areas of the business that's going to give them the biggest and the maximum return. And in all these cases, they're all going digital, and we, or third-party software maintenance with Origina, as Sainsbury's attested to, is one way to do it.
Yeah, and it's we talk about things that come at you. I can't believe that if you saw. I know we had some news items earlier, but the one that really shocked me was the announcement from IBM of what they call general price harmonization.
Oh yeah,
IBM Passport Advantage and their distributed price increases. I mean, did you see what they've done? I mean, they've gone from up to 24% price increases for some jurisdictions.
What's unbelievable is they call it a modest price increase.
Yeah, and across the board of 8%. I mean, I know we have inflation, but these guys have been putting up these prices by between 5 and 10% anyway per annum. They're now going 24% in some jurisdictions, 19% in others. I mean, and it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it really, really is. And this is the issue. These organizations are having to come back and look at these initiatives. You mentioned Gartner earlier. Obviously, one of the things I would like to talk to you a little bit about is the Gartner guide on third-party software maintenance that came out again, and this is their 4th year. They've been running this guide, and they've been making predictions about our industry. They have been talking about the growth that's existing in our industry with the benefits that we're bringing organizations, and we're bringing options that just aren't available. They're just not available. If you look at things like on the mainframe side of things, where you've got significant production environments and it's a massive profit center for IBM. It runs huge numbers of the global transactions we talked previously. I'm not to go over all this again, but 92% of the world's business transactions touch a mainframe somewhere along the journey. 80% of the world's business data is backed up on a mainframe. 7% of the worldwide IT spend is on mainframes. Being able to bring offerings to that environment, that's what innovation is about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we are hearing from our customers, our advisory teams around the globe, right? The mainframe systems, as we covered in that previous episode, Tomás, mainframe systems are not going anywhere. These are fantastic, great, robust systems that achieve the speed and the scalability that some of the best run businesses, the leading businesses use. But here's the problem, right? Mainframe systems, the technology is fantastic, but what they're consuming in part of the large IT budget is that's what's untenable. It's the cost of maintaining these systems that's contributing to that big, what I call the big budget problem. 90% of a typical IT budget goes towards keeping the lights on. Can you imagine how much money companies may be spending on maintaining their mainframes? And add on top of that, like these price increases from IBM to almost up to 24%. How much of it can companies take? And that's what makes it so ludicrous. Is if I'm a strategic partner, I want to help you navigate through such troubled times. I shouldn't be increasing, and the price seems to just go up one way, right? It just keeps going upwards. Where's the relief? That's the problem here. But yes, we talked about the mainframes, and and it's all about choice, and that's what the market guide that Gartner put out, as you mentioned, 4 years and counting. Great validation that third-party software maintenance is they call it a feasible alternative, a proven choice. This is not new. We're, leading companies in the world are using, like Sainsbury's, like, as I mentioned, Liberty Mutual, and so many other companies are using third-party software maintenance to free up their people, their time, the money to invest in digital. And Gartner also, interestingly, Tomás, calls it a quick win for IT leaders. And that's great, right? You don't have to start big. You can get some quick wins under your belt. You get a couple of products, try them out, and get some immediate savings. Invest those savings in things that's going to help your business. Go back to the business and tell them why you're going to do more of this. So Gartner's spot on in that. And it's not surprising that they also say that the number of third-party software support deals rose 18% from 27% to 45% since 2021. So with all the things going on, and with the big vendors like IBM putting the price pressure, it's not surprising. I think the word is out there that third-party software maintenance is now a proven choice.
And
Gartner's helping with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we're seeing it on the ground. We're seeing it on the ground. We've been, as you know, we were in Gartner London last week at that conference in London. And we're going to be in Vegas in 2 weeks' time. I think you yourself, you're going to be speaking, aren't you?
Yes, I'll be in Vegas next week. And here's the thing, right? Most of these companies and all the conversations that I'm having with CIOs and IT leaders, it's all pointing to the same thing. How can I deal with the current financial impact? Globally, so much going on, right? The Russia invasion of Ukraine, or the fallout from the pandemic, and the threat of a potential recession. These are all top of mind, not only for CIOs, but CEOs, CFOs, and I mentioned those numbers. But one area that they are going to continue to invest in is new technology. But the problem is, how do I free up my money? And it always comes back to, where am I being charged unfairly? And then do I have a choice to move that somewhere else? And that's where third-party software maintenance comes in.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be talking with one of our recently retired CIOs from one of our customers, Mike Rosa.
Yes, Mike Rosa. I'm fortunate to have him back on stage with me next Tuesday at the Gartner Las Vegas, the Infrastructure Operations Conference. We're going to talk about everything that we just talked about. Mike's a veteran CIO. He was the former CIO of NiSource and AEP as well. A wealth of experience, and he's himself has used third-party software maintenance in various forms in his previous tenure. So he's going to be talking about why he believed that it's such a viable alternative, and how he freed up his precious budget and people and resources to invest in all the strategic initiatives. So can't wait. Mike's going to be great.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And the thing is about it, go back to that report for a second, because when I was looking through it, it was kind of uncanny how, I mean, Gartner obviously don't come in and interrogate every single one of our customers, but with the research that they do in our business and all the other participants in the industry, I mean, you look at where organizations like us can really add value, even aside the investment side of things, things like cloud migrations, this is a challenge for organizations. It's not an overnight process. The same way with migrating to any new technology, but particularly cloud migrations, where there's a long process, and indeed for many organizations, particularly regulated organizations, who may have to leave a footprint behind. The last thing they want to have is a situation where, first of all, A, they don't have a supported environment, which obviously changes risk, or B, they have an environment where actually, because of their focus on the new area, they have to spend an inordinate amount of time and attention dealing with the challenges relating to that environment. So this is the technical debt. What they don't want to be brought back to the table every 12 or 18 months to make a change to the technology, as you talked earlier about forced upgrades, or deal with these sort of price increases we're talking about, or indeed the fact that maybe some of the technology is being sold to somebody else and no longer if they now have to have a new relationship with an organization in the way, for example, when IBM sold the technology over to HCL. HCL are an excellent company, but for many of the companies that we have taken on contracts with, they had no relationship with HCL at all, and they didn't want a situation where they brought in a brand new, very large vendor like that, who can be difficult for even when two large companies get in the room. It's two big giants kind of bouncing into each other. They needed nimbleness, they needed agility, and they weren't getting that, Or indeed, there's actually no skills in the in any of these organizations, So the fact that we can be part of that process, we can provide some surety over that technical debt. I mean, the phrase that I often use, don't replace your technical debt necessarily. It's not always the right thing to do. Restructure that debt. It could be an awful lot more sensible thing to do. You got situations where, in many cases, they're being charged and there's very little support being provided in the first instance, or the type of support that's needed. There's the frequency of calls or the stability of that environment. They don't want to make a change to it. The minute they make a change to it, suddenly there's like the issues are endless. It's like trying to unwind a very complex tapestry, and trying to remove one or two threads from that tapestry, and next thing the whole thing falls apart. Or the reason that they've removed the thread is because, for example, there's an end of support date. Suddenly somebody comes along and says, sorry, mate, you got to change all this because we don't support it anymore. You're going, no, please leave it alone. There's so many reasons.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, no, that's why I love the phrase, as Gartner says in their market guide, they call third-party software maintenance or original can be a safe haven, right? Where in all those scenarios you talk about, it can be you go in with a cloud migration program, you think it'll be done in 18 months. It probably maybe closer to 36 months. So what are you doing? How exposed are you? How much money are you continuing to pay the vendors when you know that you're not going to stay with them? Does not make sense. So I think considering a third-party software maintenance model like with Origina, where, as you said, the end of support is another great one, right? You've just invested, customers have just probably invested millions of dollars implementing a certain version of the product that works perfectly fine, and suddenly, the vendor comes and says that no, you need to get if you need to get support, you need to be on our latest version. Wait a minute, I just invested so much of money in people and time rolling it out globally, and now you want me to move to the next version. Why? So these are the questions I think companies are beginning to ask. And I think in all of these cases, that's why the safe haven concept is such a powerful one, because you should not be worried about maintaining your backend systems. That's why companies like Origin are there to help you, and you're not under pressure, right? You don't have to be forced to upgrade, and you should not be forced to upgrade. You should be on your timeline, and you drive your roadmap. It goes back to Vinny's point. You drive your roadmap, you stay in control, and that's what choice is about. And when there's a choice, Tomás, as you know, choice means competition. Competition means best value back to our customers. And that's why I love the fact that Gartner sees third-party software maintenance as such a viable and a compelling alternative to mainstream vendor support.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to be in the pound sterling or euro at the moment with 24% increases in the IBMs. That would not be good. Listen, I think it's been a great discussion, and I think it's timely that we reviewed that. We're very lucky that Gartner do this report, to be honest with you, because it raises the profile of the industry. It helps raise our profile too. So we're very grateful to the organization to do that. It gives us a great opportunity to showcase what we do and be part of a really fast growing industry. And I'd like to thank you, Harry, for joining me again on the show. I think we've done a cracking job reviewing that. Obviously, if anybody who's listening wants to read the full report, please go to our website, origina.com. Check under the resources section. You'll be able to check it out and give it a read and come back and listen to this podcast again and see do you agree or disagree or do you have any questions for us? So we'd love to hear from you.
Always fun doing these with you, Tomás. And next time we'll get Brendan on. So please do come and listen to the next month's episode. Can't wait.
And I hear we're going to be side by side because you're coming to Dublin. Is that right?
We will be side by side. I will be in Dublin, and we'll have some nice back and forth.
Yeah. It'll probably be dark like it is here at the moment in Dublin because it's getting dark all the time, earlier and earlier. But listen, it's great to have you, Harry. Great chatting to you as always. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. And to you, our listeners, thank you very much for joining me. And we'll join us again in a couple of weeks' time. We're discussing who knows what, but certainly something to do with software. Chances are something to do with IBM, maybe even HCL, maybe even Larry Ellison. Who knows? We're two Irish guys discussing software. Thank you and take care. Bye.